Okay, so today is September 26th. Right now, it's 6:10. Um, the stock market today closed at 3655. The last 30 minutes was rough. It was really turbulent. The stock moved up from 3650 to close to 3680 and then went back all the way to 3650. So when a door is knocked many times, the door actually opens. So that same goes with the support and resistance. If a stock kind of checks more than two times a same level of resistance or same level of support, chances are high that you'll break that support or break that resistance. That's what is happening right now with the S&P. So if you recall, the S&P 3636 low was formed on June 16th. And then on last Friday, which was September 23, we went to all the way to 3650, and right around that time we bounced back to 36 within 10-15 minutes. We bounced back from 3650 to 3690. So I posted a video on Friday. I said that bounce was so powerful, it doesn't look like that we are going to go back visit this soon. But looks like that was not the case, because today, as we opened up in the market, it was 37. It opened, below that level, but previous low. But then it bounced back to pretty much to 3700 level, and then it again went back and tested twice. 3644 went up to 3670 level, and again towards the end, towards the close, it knocked that corridor around 3650. So my guess is that tomorrow we will break the low. We will make a new low below 3636. So why? Because all the stocks are behaving really crazy right now. So valuation wise, everything is making 52-week low. However, Apple has not. Apple is still holding around 150. And once the Apple breaks, then the Apple will take the S&P along with it. And that could very well be tomorrow. Apple was holding up pretty well. It went all the way close to 155 level. I think it was 154-ish. But towards the close, it was, again, testing the 150. It's actually closed just around 150, 151. Tomorrow, first thing will happen is that is going to test that whether Apple is breaking that 150 barrier, 150 support. If it does, it's going to probably just bounce back a little bit. But then again, what happened today at the S&P corridor, that knocking that 3650 level, is going to happen tomorrow for Apple. Is going to come knocking that 150 support level over a couple of times. If it breaks, and if it cannot go past that resistance, then very soon the Apple is going to go to for 146 or so. That will take the S&P down to 36 or below. This was the same thing I mentioned last week in a video, but it didn't happen last week. Apple was still holding strong at 150, but I guess the time is now that period is over. Everything else went down except Apple. It's going to happen now if the S&P has to see a new low. So that means that as they say, the September seasonality. So the last week of the September is always the worst stock for the year. Worst for the stock for the whole year. So I guess that's true this year as well. If that's the case, then do we have a bounce also coming after mid-year election around November? Probably. The main thing that is driving the stock is obviously this uncertainty in the US dollar. The currency is going up like crazy. Right now the Dixie is at 114 today. It almost moved up by 10% in last 2 weeks, which is unheard of. And that's because of all the different central banks are devaluing their currencies in tandem, buying buying the US bond at the same time that the US is the interest rate being going up, as and the QT, the quantitative tightening, probably taking a part in it, but nobody knows how much. The general assumption is it's actually moving up the 10-year by 0.25 or 25 basis point, but that's not something that is very, everybody, because it's a market, it's very difficult to see that what one entity, how that moves the market, unless you know exact weight of it. But that is something that, and we don't know that until that happens. The Fed doesn't publish that when and how much they're buying on a given time. So it's very hard to say that because of the quantitative tightening, we are seeing this, the yield going up, but that might be one of the reason. So until this 2-year yield, which is touch basing around 4.3ish, and it's actually going in a channel. If you look at the 10-year yield, the 10-year yield is actually just breaking a channel that started the bull channel, actually, that started quite long ago. And it's really bullish, because if that channel is broken, we are going towards, like right now it's 3.9. The channel will be broken when it goes above 3.92, and if that happens, then it's going towards that 4.6 level. But if it and the 2-year is already around 4.3, 4.45. Remember that it just broke the 4.0 level just 2 to 3 days ago, last week. So this movement of 10%, like this sort of movement is really, really crazy. And that is what is like unheard of. It never happened before. The the quants, or the quantitative stock trading, all over the world, along with it, like everything is happening together. The adding the interest rate, the central banks are raising the interest, and at the same time, US is also doing that. The currency is getting devaluated. All this together is making this big cocktail. Nobody knows. There's no playbook for that in the past. So it is an indicative that stock will go down. However, in that context, everything has an ending, right? And everything stabilizes after a while. Something breaks. So most likely that will align with the mid-year election, and that will basically conclude around first or second week of November. That is the same time when we'll have visibility. What the earnings going to look like, specifically Apple, a lot of the Microsoft and other companies, that how this, this quarter, the third quarter, how the different the Dixie going up impacted their currency, their earning and their margins. That will give us some visibility how it's going to look like. The worst case scenario, if yet to come, then what's the impact if this 10% move in the currency in the last 3 months with the dollar, if that impact the earning, for example, 10% or so, then if it moves another 10%, the currency, then what's the earning impact will be. So those sort of visibility, and hopefully by the time we'll have some stability in the US treasuries as well as the interest rate and Dixie, that will probably cause some sort of pause. By the time we'll get one more CPI report, hopefully that will be better. The earnings will be gone. So hopefully by around October end or November-ish, first week of November or second week of November, we'll get some stability. We should get a bounce. But looks like until that happens, for the next 4 weeks or so, we are going to see a lot of volatility. I mean, for sure. But where we are headed, okay, that depends on how Apple behaves. So Apple, if goes down to 140 and then get bought back around 138, Apple has a strong support. I think that's going to be the first support. It's going to go straight down to, if it breaks at 150, going straight down to 140 in probably a couple of sessions, like 2 days or 3 days by the end of this week. That will take the S&P to, that $10 move is almost like a close to 7% move. So that will probably take the S&P 13. Apple has a 7% weighted, so that itself takes you around 5%, right? So 7% of the 7%, so that's around 0.5%. But let's say that's 1% itself for the S&P. So that will, another 2 or 3%. We're right there at 3,500 or around that level. So I think that's where we're going to be headed by the end of the week. So by Friday, we should be around like 3,500 level. Question is whether there'll be liquidation, whether there'll be, people will start buying back. Again, the other question is who is going to sell the Apple stock, because there is, the major investors are BlackRock, Vanguard, Berkshire. I can imagine that, they have waited this long and they would sell now. So then it becomes that, the retail investors and the hedge funds and others. I don't have the data. I'll try to find it, that what percentage of this overall Apple stocks being owned by the hedge fund and others. Around 20%, 30% is owned by these three or four big investors. So if others are selling, then we'll see this impact, and then based on that, we'll have this movement. But 3,500 is a good level. I think that's where we'll probably start the earnings season, starting with the JPM and others, and we're gonna start moving the stock. It's gonna be volatile, but not. It's gonna probably stabilize around 3,600 again, 3,682. The big support, or rather big resistance now, is around 3,800. 3805 is the first Fibonacci resistance level, but 3882 was a solid support. 3882 when it broke below 3900. So now it's going to become a solid resistance. So that's where we probably would be headed. But that's a long time. Seems like a long time from now. For now, the main we had to, just put our seatbelt on and see how the market nose dives towards the 3,500, whether it stops there, whether it goes even beyond it. So, yep, we will keep an eye and keep you posted.